All right. Does everyone got a sticker? We have a lot of stickers left. They're very cool. Look like a stamp. You can put it on your laptop and ship it. Yeah, just let me know later if you guys want. I can go around. All right. So my name is Marco. I work at ExpresVPN. I joined, I think it's June last year. I joined from Singapore, then I moved to Hong Kong. And I work on the TrustedServer team. And TrustedServer is the technology that allows us to set up our server system. So basically, you might have seen online, if you look what's out there, you might have seen a bunch of marketing claims and all that. But it's never been, me talking to Pete, he's been in the company for longer. He's the chief research officer of ExpresVPN. I asked him like if we ever presented, because it's not something very new like we just did. It's something that we've been doing for a long time. And he said that from the technical perspective, it's never been presented. So I thought it's a very cool technology, and it's something we should show everyone to actually make sure everyone understands how we set up our servers, what tooling do we use, what gets involved in the process, what are the things that we care of, and what actually runs on the server, right? Of course, there's a VPN instance, but all around it, right? So hopefully today, you guys will learn how we do all this entire process of setting up all the, I think it's like 1,500 plus servers around the world, and what we put into them. All right, so as I said, this is not the first time I give this talk. First time actually was at FOSS Asia, which is a conference that runs in Asia. Very cool one. It moves sometimes stays for a few years in the same place. If you guys have never been, it's a cool place to be. There's a bunch of interesting people. I think, you can see Pete here. And there's a lot of like cool projects there, Tor and all that. Yeah. So I invite you to check it out next year. It's in Bangkok. It's usually around March. And we are the biggest sponsor of this. Express has been lately making a big effort to give back to the community. We're focusing more and more on open source, because to be honest, open source is also what has been empowering us for a long time. And you'll see when I present TrustedServer, there's a lot of it involved. Yeah, and there's a picture of the team that went to FOSS Asia. Okay, so a bit of the problem statement, right? The world is a hostile place, especially, well, both these days is outside of the internet and in the internet. So, but we mostly care about what's in the networks. And in this hostile world, we have to set up, as I said, about 1,500 servers in different locations. So 100 plus countries. Countries and different data centers from different vendors, where we have very little control, right? Like different countries, different policies, different vendors. They have their own rules. They manage things in a different way. So the premise that we have to do here, we have to assume that we can be compromised from different fronts, right? So we can be compromised at the physical hardware. That is one of them. We can be compromised the data center. We can't trust the data center. Someone can just go try to plug something into the server or access data directly, or someone might want to size the computer, the server itself, and of course from the internet, right? There's a lot of bad actors on the internet. So that's also some attack vector that we have to take into account. And this is a bit of the entire ecosystem that I'm planning to explain today. And it's what we call TrustedServer, right? So it's not only, if you go into the marketing blog posts, you might think it's just the server, but TrustedServer is an entire ecosystem that allows us to set up safely and securely set up these servers in this hostile environment, right? With some level of guarantees that we want for our users, right? So you can see different colors that somehow group the different parts of the system. So at the beginning, you can see the build system. At the bottom, you have like the process that we do, the deployment, the bootloader, and activation. So that's the process that we do to set up one of the servers. And then in the middle, you have what we put inside the server. So the actual build, it becomes the software inside the server. Then on the right, on the right side, you guys get the orchestration, which is the part where we actually manage to set up not one, but all this amount of servers around the world. And then, of course, there's an important part that we cannot obviate. It's the human processes, because in security, that's also a very important part that has to be taken care of. And at first, I'm going to talk about that part, because as I said, technology will fail without secure human interaction, and in many places, that is usually the weakest link. Sometimes this is overseas, and other times you have someone not well trained on certain processes, and that is your way into a system, right? So, of course, as many projects, especially on the open source world, which I think there's a lot of good practices. Before we get code into the build systems, we do branch transmissions with 2 people code reviews. Then we have some hardware backed sign commit. So we enforce that you use your YubiKey to touch and sign your commits. And then this entire process of all the humans and all that, we also include it in our audits. So we've done a few audits of the entire process, TrustedServer, and the human processes are also part of that audit. So we audit the technology, but the human part also. Okay, so now we're going to talk a bit about the build system. And the build system, where we put the first, so we focus first on chain attacks. So we look at where we source our packages, which are mainly Debian packages and Python packages. So for PyPy packages, for every software requirements that we have in PyPy, we map out the entire dependency tree, and then we validate the hashes for all the packages in that tree. For Debian, we have, of course, the normal Debian packages that are also signed, but we also have an APT plugin to for selective signature validation on certain packages that we do internally. And then, so I didn't mention, but our operating system that runs in the server is heavily based on Debian Live. So that's why all these Debian packages and all that going around. And then there was a lot of effort to make Debian a reproducible build, which I think is going to be possible soon. I'm not sure 100% how soon, but yeah, I think there's some work on that direction. And what we do is we compile the entire operating system simultaneously in 2 different places, right? And then we make the resulting ISO files, we compare them, and we make sure that they are the same down to the timestamp level. So we make sure that we compiled what we wanted to do. Then there's a signing process. So we do, our CI will sign the ISOs, and we'll basically have the ISO and the signature. And then we'll do this signature verification before deployments and when updates are done in the server. OK. So now we're going to look at what actually goes into the server. So as I said, it's based on a Debian live. But we have highly customized it for our needs. Of course, it operates in RAM. So we don't use any hard drive. We run everything on RAM. And the core root file system is a read-only squashfs container. Writable layers, it's an overlay file system in memory. And nothing gets written to disk. We just don't have the disk when our servers are running. So that way, no persistence of identifiable information happens on the server. So if you reboot the server, everything's lost, right? If you unplug the server, everything's gone. And you have to run an activation of that server again. So it doesn't go back to the actual trusted server. It just goes in init RAM fs, and it needs an activate. It needs someone with permissions enough to actually activate that server again. So someone gets the server out of the data center, brings it somewhere else, powers on, it will get nothing, not even a running server. Of course, no logging, the eternal promise of a VPN service. So we do that at different levels. We remove third-party networking software, no logins. There's in the firewall rules, if there's a log rule, we make our unit tests fail. Logs are removed from config files. Even if a ROC application outputs an error, systemd will basically dump it into def null. And we also disable the core dumps to prevent any memory data leakage on process crashes. So we do it at a few levels, try to make sure that nothing happens there. OK, so we had the operating system. We built it. We got two things. We got an ISO. We got a signature, right? One thing very important is this ISO has no information about the server other than the basic packages that you run. No config is in there. Nothing gets baked into it. We do that on the activation process, and we'll see that later. Because if someone gets their hands onto one of these ISOs, they just basically get a customized Debian. They don't get any of the certificates or anything that we have, right? All right, so this is the part. So if we put the configuration on the disk, so someone can access or modify it, right? So we don't put it anywhere in the ISO. We don't put it. So it's basically injected at activation time. So when you run the server, it pulls. We have a server administration panel that allows us to set up the configurations for servers. So this configuration is pulled. And there's a JSON schema that brings on all this config. And it brings all, and they also will bring the certificates. The server will only boot if the ISO is, the signature is verified, right? And as I said before, if you reboot this system, it goes into what we call trusted boot, which is basically in ramifers, and it will require another activation. So now no config, nothing is left on that reboot process. And then you will need someone with permissions and enough power to actually put it back to into running mode. And now we go into the activation part. So after the server, we go into the activation side. So we make sure that the commit hash that has been used to build this this ISO comes from our master branch, right? And this is checked by our config system every now and then. And if that commit hash is different, then the system reboots itself, and then it's not operated anymore. It's not running. Cannot be accessed. Again, no default live build user accounts or passwords live in the server. The JSON config that we brought from the server administration panel gets applied. And what the thing that the activator will do as a last action is will permanently revoke its own access. So there's no access to the server after activation happens. No SSH, nothing. The server will be permanently closed. So if someone comes to us and says, "Hey, I want you to give me access to this server," we just say we don't have it. So, yeah, that's how it works. And the last part of this process comes in the orchestration, which is basically running this process of deploying the bootloader and activation, but running it for the 1,500 servers, right? So we basically have rundeck for that, which will run this entire process for the 1,500 VPN servers with a specific commit hash version. We do this weekly, so we update our servers weekly with the latest updates, security updates, and whatever developments we have. And the servers have a strict pool architecture, right? So they independently reach out to pull their config. There's no concept of going into the server and doing things. The servers the ones who actually reach out for whatever they need. As I said, no remote access after activation. Nothing goes in, which is allowing us to ensure that every VPN server in the fleet is consistent, right? We need to have a consistent fleet of servers, 1,500 servers running the same thing. It's secure and leaves zero trace of user activity. And yeah, so I want to leave with the idea of what TrustedServer is, and it's our way to set up our zero trace infrastructure that basically turns vulnerable hardware into highly secure ephemeral nodes that are able to forget that they ever existed. Yeah, and one last thing, probably you saw it outside. We're hiding. So this one, there's two roles that we're looking for. This one is specifically in the TrustedServer team. So if you know your Linux and want to be part of it, yeah, have a look, or you can talk to me later. Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, happy to answer. Yeah. Do we have a microphone for the questions? Hello? Hello? Do we have a microphone for the question? Or not? No? No? Okay. how do you prevent against an on-site attacker? Like injecting in your config file? Inside. Injecting in our config file. We have so we have the two-person verification system. So that's one of them. Two-person, then that might be a bit of a tricky one. I think that two-person we're screwed. Inside. Oh, no. You mean a governmental body comes to the data center? I mean, anyone comes to the data center? So we actually, I think there was I think it was Turkey. They came and they seized one of the servers, but they can't get anything out of it. Like the server is locked. You can't access it. If you unplug it, turn it off, it's gone. I'm not sure what you can do. If there's any exploit that you can run without touching it, I would say that's the only way. But yeah, but you don't have access to it, right? Like how do you turn it? How do you make it malicious? Compromising it by the BIOS. That could be a way. That could be a way, and that's actually something we're looking on. We're looking into TPM verification. This is the next one that we trying to add to the system, exactly because of that. Yeah. Yeah. If you do that, yeah. 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 Yeah, I assume it's like a lot of work, but I mean there's always ways, but we just try to make it as difficult as we can, and that's the entire idea, right? Like what I can think, what would they get if they do that? Like definitely no user data from the servers. Yeah. That's our next step. Yeah. Mm. Yep. It's less than you would think. It's not like crazy because we run a very lean system. We do need a lot of RAM because there's the servers that we have to use. There's a lot of users and all that, so there's more RAM that you would get on your laptop, but the system itself wouldn't use the like so much. I'm not sure the exact number. Do we know the exact number, George? 128. I mean that's the server itself, right? But you know the footprint of the OS? 40. Oh, 4. Yeah, 4. Yeah, so it's way less than you would expect, at least me. Yeah.
So this is a bit controversial question that how do you maximize accountability and transparency between your customer infrastructure and your internal transparency? Like, so one of the competitors has like system transparency that's hosted on a crypto
Yeah, so that's actually a very good point. And that's something since I joined that I always wanted to work on. And I think the one you mentioned, it's actually there was some article recently that it was saying something that it has some flaws, but don't take my word for it. But so one of the things that we're doing more, as I said, is I went out and talk about it, like tell people what we do. But we also looking into open sourcing this. So we're looking into making this an open source system that people can use to set up their own servers. You can set up your own VPN servers. So you can actually see by yourself that what we're using in the server is what we say we do. We're also looking into the cryptographic side of things. I think this is the reason that I was saying that we're walking into the TPM, that we're walking into adding all these things into the server and add way more transparency to it. Because I do agree with you. Like in the end, you have to trust. Like you're basically switching your trust from an ISP to a VPN server, right? And then you need to give guarantees, right? So far, our guarantees right now comes from the independent auditors. We have, I'm not sure if it's the company that's had more audits, but it's one of them in terms of VPN companies. So that's one of the ways that we do it. The other way that you can see is when we had subpoenas from governments and they seized the computers, they got nothing out of it. So that is another guarantee. We never handed any logs. Yeah, so that's our guarantees for now. But we're definitely looking into making all those so people can. So one of the cool things that I want to do with TrustedServer is to basically allow people to set up their own VPN server and then make it show up on your app. So you can actually, like, if you have a server at home, you can have it in the app and be like, hey, let me connect to home. Yeah. So we're working on making that more open. Nothing else? All right, thank you very much.